Thank you, Alexia. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is April Spate. Depending on where you are, either good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, I am saying good morning here in Los Angeles. I hope that you're all excited because today we are going to discuss measuring and mitigating risk for generative AI app in Azure AI Foundry. I created this Learn module that we're going to go through, and I'm going to take you through step by step in terms of the exercises that's in this guided challenge project. And then I'll also be answering any questions that may come through as well. We do have another cloud advocate present, Bethany. She's hanging out within the comments via YouTube. So if you do have any questions, feel free to post them there. You can also just share in general, and I might get to them myself and answer during the stream. But in any case, tomorrow we do have a Q&A within the Discord. Alexia, if you can please share that link for March 5th at 8 a.m. PT, that's going to be in the Discord channel. Do attend. I will be there hanging out, answering questions that you may have based on today's live stream. So if you don't have a chance to answer something today, or if you're watching this after the live stream is complete and you want to follow up and ask a question, come find me tomorrow in the Discord tomorrow morning. Again, that is at 8 a.m. PT. So I'll be up and early and ready. But without further ado, let's head into the module itself. So the module is available in Microsoft Learn. If you're not familiar with Microsoft Learn, you can access that by going to learn.microsoft.com. Now, we do have a direct link to this particular module, and Alexia will also share that as well with you all. It is going to be the module for measure and mitigate risk for generative AI app in Azure AI Foundry. So you can access that by going to aka.ms/measure-mitigate-workshop. And that will land you here in Microsoft Learn on the module itself that you see here on the screen. So as I mentioned, this is a guided project. So while there is some conceptual information that I placed in here, the entire module itself is exercise-based. The exercises take place in Azure AI Foundry, so there's no need to worry about working locally with code. However, if you are interested in doing things with code, I will pinpoint throughout the stream what parts can be done programmatically over in a place like VS Code. But for this stream and this module, everything does take place in Azure AI Foundry. If you're unfamiliar with Azure AI Foundry, we have a portal that's available where you can go and do an assortment of things related to building your own generative AI systems. And so today we're going to be creating one based on a chat bot for Contoso Outdoor, which is a fictitious company. So with that said, this module is beginner level. And in terms of what we'll be doing in here, by the end of this module, or throughout the module, if you will, we're going to be uploading data and creating an index. You can do that with code, by the way. We're going to create a system message, also something you could do with code. We're going to create and add a content filter. We'll do that in Portal. We're also going to execute a manual evaluation, which is done in the portal. And then we're also going to do AI-assisted evaluations. Our AI-assisted evaluations can be done in the portal, but if you so choose to do so with code, you can do that in VS Code as well. So I just want to make sure I'm pointing out where you can actually go to do either or, if you ever have any preference as to whether you want to work in the portal versus with code. So coming on down, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things that we'll go through. We'll even do the knowledge check. If you see here, I have not completed my own knowledge check, so we'll do that together, and I'll provide some context around the answers for that. And let's see what else that I have here. Just quickly, I'm just going through the check just to see where everyone is, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So I see we have some folks from South Africa. Hello, welcome. Also Seattle, my neighbors up north. And let's see what else we have. Mexico, hello. It's probably feel even warmer there than here in LA. Right now, we have a bit of a cold front where I live. And let's see, Bethany's there as well. So again, Bethany is hanging out in the chat. Do feel free to ask questions. If Bethany doesn't get to a question, I will be sure to respond as well. And again, we do have that Discord Q&A tomorrow. All right, Minnesota, hello. I'm hoping to one day plan a trip out there. That's where Paisley Park is. And so hopefully I get a chance to do that. All right. So in terms of, is there a free tier for Foundry? So when you're creating, this is a question that we have from Scott Fraley. So when you're creating your Azure resources, which we're going to get into when we get just past the introduction, depending on the resource that you're creating, there may be an option for one that does have a free tier. I'm not going to be able to physically show that here today since I already have my resources created. But when you are creating your resources, check out whether one of the resources does have the option for the free tier, and then you'll be able to give that a try. I see New Jersey's here, Vienna's here, hello. India, hello India, and Florida, Canada, New York. Oh, I love New York. All right. RVA, is that Richmond, Virginia? If so, hello. Columbia, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I could spend all day saying hello to everyone. Let me scroll on up here. So starting off with the introduction, as I mentioned, we're going to be basing the scenario around Contoso Camping Store. It's a fictitious company, and essentially what they're doing is creating a chatbot. Now that chatbot's not just any old chatbot, that chatbot is a RAG chatbot, and we'll get into RAG as we proceed a little further in the module. But essentially what it's going to do is leverage some grounding documents that we're going to provide it when we create that index, and then it's going to take that information from the grounding documents to generate the responses based on the queries from the Contoso customers. And so there's a wide variety of information that we're going to provide around camping products. And so from there, we're also going to, once we've had that created, we'll do some ways that we can mitigate any risks that we might potentially be up against with such an app. And we'll also do some measurement as well to measure for the quality of the responses, as well as any risk or safety that we need to be mindful of in terms of the responses itself. So I'm going to move on along to the prepare unit. If you are following along at home or wherever you may be, since this is in Microsoft Learn, you don't have to go as quickly as I might go. You can definitely take your time, but in any case, I'm going to go through each of the units we have here. I do have everything already pre-created in Azure AI Foundry. So what I'll do is, as we get to a step, I'll still take you through how to go about doing it. Anytime anything may need to be run, for example, I do have those things pre-run for us all for the sake of time. But if you are following along at home, just keep in mind that there may be some things that might take just a little bit to process. And I'll highlight what those areas might be for you, just in case you're wondering how long something may take if you're doing this on your own. So starting off, as I mentioned, we are going to need to create the resources for the actual, in order to get started. So there's a couple things that you're going to need. And so first, starting off, we're going to need the Azure AI Hub resource. So I personally like to create my resources over in the Azure AI Foundry portal. Again, you can access that by going to ai.azure.com. And then once you're in there, it'll take you like a wizard in terms of how to get started. So I'm going to just scroll down here in terms of what the steps would entail. So you begin by creating the project itself, and let's see if I can actually get us a little further in that step without taking through the whole process. But let's say, oh, I can do that here. So you would have created where it says here, create project. Selecting that, you're going to give your project a name as well. So you can name it whatever you want. Let's say I wanted to name this Contoso Demo. And then you're going to need a hub resource. So the hub itself is what more or less houses all of your projects that you're creating. So one hub can have multiple projects. In this case, if I already have a hub created, I can just select that from the dropdown. If you don't have a hub created, you can select new hub. Right now it's showing that I already have one, but if there are others, you can select that. And then from there, if I go to create, yes, of course, it's going to create this project. It's not the one I want, but essentially it would create a brand new project. As you can see, there's not many steps there in terms of creating the project itself. The hub itself is where you're going to have a bit more where you can define things and see if I can get out of this. Nope. So within the hub itself, that's where, or at least the project or the hub, I'm sorry, that's where you'll be able to select your Azure subscription. You can also select your resource group if you have one that already exists. I recommend for this exercise that you use EastUS2, just given that there is support for all of the features that we have within this module. I happen to use Sweden Central, which is also supported for everything we have in this module. But because not all resources, or not all resources, if you will, share the same region availability, I highly recommend, if you're here in the modules, to select that link that says region availability, just in case you want to use something different. The worst thing you can do is get far only to realize that one of the regions you selected actually isn't supported. I have been there. So do check that out. But if you're doing this module, I do recommend using EastUS2, but like I said, Sweden Central also works as well. All right. We also have some project files that you'll need to access, because later on in the workshop, you will need to actually upload some files. And especially since we're creating a RAG chat bot, I have an entire folder of products that we're going to provide. So you don't have to create those products from scratch. I already have those for you. But where can you get those? Well, they're in a handy GitHub repository. And so this link that says Measure and Mitigate Workshop is going to take you to this GitHub repo that I have here on the screen. I do maintain this, so if you ever do have any issues, feel free to post them into that repo. But you're going to head into that Measure and Mitigate Workshop. I do think the link in the module takes you there already, but in case you land on like the actual main page for the repo, this is where you'll be. You'll select Measure and Mitigate Workshop, and this is where you can find all the files that you're actually going to need to do this module. Now, back over in the module, I do warn that when this gets downloaded, it's likely that I think this products folder ends up being zipped. Do not unzip it. The reason being is, I'm trying to think, is this one for this one? Nope. Yeah, I was right. I was misspoken. So yes, so the products one is not going to be zipped. Sorry, I'm thinking of another module. But when you're getting the actual repo from GitHub, you're going to use code and then download that zip. But the products folder itself, we're going to actually upload the whole folder later. So don't move anything around in there. I recommend to keep everything as is. If you happen to be new to GitHub, however, and you just have never, you've never done anything around cloning or downloading repos, the way you would go about doing that here at the main page is by selecting code. And then from here, you're going to download the zip. So that's how you access that, just in case there's any curiosity there. All right, so let's see what else we have. Okay, so I think we're actually ready to now dive into the Foundry portal itself. And let me get away from that new project that I created, since I don't need it. Go to the one that I know is the one we need. There we are. All right, so choosing and deploying a model. There are a lot of models available. And in terms of trying to figure out which one to select for your particular use case, it really depends on, honestly, your use case, what your goals are as well. And so one way that we can go about finding models and learning more about them is over in the model catalog in Azure AI Foundry. So the model catalog is where you can find a variety of models available, whether they're models that we provide from Microsoft, such as our Azure OpenAI Service ones. There's also ones available from Mistral, Meta, Cohere, NVIDIA, Hugging Face, and then, as I mentioned, models that we've trained also at Microsoft. We're going to dive a bit into the model catalog itself in terms of how you can find out more about models, and then we'll finish with actually deploying a model for your own use as well. So here in Foundry, over on the left-hand side, in the left navigation, there is a option that says Model Catalog, and this is how you access the Model Catalog. If you're new to Foundry and you aren't aware, this little collapse button's here, so you can collapse that left menu. It'll just give you more real estate on the screen. So here at the top, we have what's new and what's available. You may see some models here that you've heard about recently, but coming on down is where we're actually going to hang out for this part of the module itself. We have these filters available to help you find the modules to fit your use case best. And so to start off, the way that I have guided you all through the module itself is to start by looking at the collections. So if I select collections here, we have some collections that have been created where once you select one, it'll just show you all the modules or the models within that collection. I'm going to start with the Azure Open AI service. The reason being is that we're going to look at the model card for GPT-4o. And so I happen to know it's in there, but if you didn't, one way, for example, is we can explore models by looking at the collection. And then from here, you can also filter for some of the other areas. So in this one, I'm going to do inference task. And then I'm going to go to chat completion since that's what best fits our scenario. And I'm seeing we have 12 that's available there. So now that I've done that filtering, I decided, hey, I want to go with GPT-4o, but I want to read about it first before I actually deploy the model itself. What we're seeing on the screen right now is called the model card. And so this model card itself provides more information about the model. The information on here will vary depending on which model you're looking at. But for GPT-4o, this is an example of what you would see here. You'll have the details. There's some information around the benchmarks if they are available. So as you can see here, we have some benchmarks. There's some ways you can see the existing deployments we have, which I do have one, and then we have some code samples that might be available. Over here on the right, on the quick facts, I like this area, especially to get an idea of the last time that this was trained. So this has been trained up to September 2023, which is a little bit a while ago now that we're in 2025. But if you're looking for a model that's a little more current in terms of the corpus that it's been trained on, that's one thing you can keep in mind. We have pricing information here as well. There's information on model versions, just in case you're curious to know which model versions you could potentially use. And then heading down, we have some language support as well. So this is what information you would find within the model card itself. Now, let's say I want to look at one that's under our model as a service offering. So an example like that would be Llama. So if I go back to the model catalog, and again, this is what's been unit 3 for our choosing a model. So I can look for the Llama models by actually using the search bar. So although we have the filters above, you can search in the search bar. So in this case, I can just type in Llama 270B, which is the one that I suggest in the module. Let's say I want the one that's for chat. So it would be this one. You may notice some differences available here in terms of the information available. So this is just to highlight that depending on the model you're looking at, the information on the screen will vary. So do keep that in mind. Now, let's say there's a couple of models I've landed on and I want to see how they compare against one another. Well, what's great is that you can compare them as well in Foundry. So in order to do that, what we're going to need to do is go back to the model catalog. And then here in this filter area that we first started within, you can select compare models. Once you're here in compare models, you can select the models that you want to use for the comparison itself. So as this loads, we'll see some of the pre-selected ones that are here. There's likely going to be a GPT model, and then we have some others. So as I can see here, we have a GPT-4o, we have 3.5 Turbo. We're actually just going to look at those two in terms of how we can do a comparison. The others you can get rid of by selecting the X, so that's what we'll do here. And then in terms of adding more models to compare, there's a button in the bottom left that says Model to Compare. You'll select that, and then you'll get the list of all those models that you just saw over in the model catalog. And this is where you can select the models, and you can confirm that you want to add them. But in this case, I'm only going to use GPT-4o and 3.5 Turbo. So let's say there's a world where I'm comparing these two, and I'm not quite sure which one I want to use for my Contoso app that I'm creating. Well, now that I have these selected, over here on the right, we get this, this graph that gets created, and you can define what's on the x-axis or the y-axis. The default right now is the quality index and then the cost. But let's say I wanted to check for something else like fluency in terms of, well, how do they compare in terms of how fluent the responses that are generated are? So for the y-axis, I can actually go to what would be quality, and I can select fluency instead. It's going to change what we have on the X and Y axis here, but then I can also still see how they compare. So down in the bottom left, we have GPT 3.5 Turbo, and it has its little ranking all the way down there. But For GPT-4o, we're significantly higher. So if this happens to be a metric that's really important for me for what I'm creating, I probably want to go with the one that has the higher ranking there or the higher score. So therefore, I would select that one in particular. Now, I will mention that coming up soon, I think it's March 10th, Nitya from our team, she's going to start this series called Model Mondays, where she's exploring models more. So if there's more you want to learn about models and get an idea of how you can go about selecting one, just learning more about the ones that are available, that series will be kicking off soon. If you haven't joined our Discord, do check that out. I'm pretty sure she'll be promoting it in there. Also, we'll also be promoting it on LinkedIn too. So just want to make sure you're aware that that's happening. So let's say I decided GPT-4o, that's the one I want to use. Now I want to deploy it. Well, to go about deploying it, you can actually do it here from this compare screen. Here on the left, I would select GPT-4o. And then once I'm in here and once this loads, I can go to this screen that says Overview, and then I can select Deploy. Now, because I've already deployed it, I won't redeploy this particular model. But if I do select it, this is where I can now come in, give it its deployment name, and then this is also where you can select the deployment type, and then you have some deployment details. Now, in the event you want to customize anything down in the deployment details, you would do so by selecting this Customize button, and this is where you can now select the model version instead of using whichever default one it provided. You can also choose which AI resource to leverage for this connection. This is also where you can change the tokens per minute rate limit as well. For this module, I do believe, I think I may have requested, 100. And let me look back in the instructions to see if I did that. Let's see. I would say start out for 100. Yes, I do have it in the instructions. And so I'll share on the screen where I'm at right now. So we've came past compare models. Once I'm down in deploy a model section, I do have a little blurb here about tokens per minute. But at step 6, this is where I say to have the slider set at 100K. For the model itself, that's really all you're going to need. If you do go below that, that amount, you may run into some issues when you go to later run things within the chat playground or for the manual evaluations. So 100K, I would say, is a safe bet if you are following the module itself. Now below, you'll see something that's called a content filter. So our models that we provide, our Azure OpenAI models, we have a safety filter that's available in here. You cannot remove it, I would say, but we do have 2 different versions or 3 different versions of it. I would suggest using the V2 one, as it's the newer one. It's going to help ensure that we're mitigating any harm that may be generated by the AI, or it will also avoid generating anything in response to any harmful prompts that the users send in. So after you have everything here set the way you want it to be, you'll select deploy. I'm going to click cancel again because I already have one deployed. Now, if you're wondering where do I go see where my models all are, I'm going to expand this left menu back and click models and endpoints. And that's where we house all the models that you have deployed in a project. So for this particular project, I do have some other models also deployed, but here's where I can see that GPT-4o one that I've done. And if I do select this, this is where you can get more information about your particular model that you deployed. If you happen to be doing things with code, this is also where you'll come to find more information for your environment variables for your model. Like the key is here, the endpoints here, the model name is also there. That's the name that you created for it. So this is just a heads up in case you're wondering, like, where do I go find more information about my models? All right, so let's see what else we have here. Where are we at next? So we have our model deployed, but now we're going to go try things out in the playground, because although we took a look at how GPT-4o compares to GPT-3.5 Turbo, we haven't had a chance to actually test it out on our own to see how it does responses. So what you can do is open it up in the playground. So this takes us to the chat playground. And here in the chat playground is where I can actually chat. using the model itself. Now, right now, this is a foundation model. There is no data that it's been grounded in whatsoever. And so therefore, you can ask any questions to it. It's going to generate responses based on its existing training data. So if I were to ask a question in the module, I provide some examples of questions to ask. So for example, there's one here about providing a list of 2 national parks to visit during the summer. I have an example here, but because it's generative AI, we might not get the same exact answer, but let's give that one a try to see how it responds. And so let's see how quickly, here we go. So this is just, again, this model has not been grounded in any data. And right off the bat, this is how it responds to a question such as list 2 national parks to visit during the summer. But let's say that I want to ask a question about a product recommendation, because if you remember, we're building this app based around Contoso products, but we haven't told it anything about Contoso products yet. So if we were to ask the question, recommend a tent that fits a family of 4, what it's going to do is actually recommend tents, but this isn't a Contoso tent. It's actually one from the brand Coleman. And so while it's great that we have a response here, we even have one from REI, it's not quite what we're looking for, because we only want Contoso customers to be recommended Contoso products. So how do we get there? Well, we have to actually upload our products and create an index. And so that's what we're going to do next in Unit 4. So again, for those following along, I am completing Unit 3. We're now going to head to Unit 4, which is upload and create an index. So I'm going to stay on this screen for a little bit. And in terms of what's actually happening here. So I mentioned that we are creating a RAG chatbot. And so that stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. If you're unfamiliar with RAG, we do have a new series that actually starts tomorrow. It's called RAG Time. There is a link that I provided for the for the RAG Time start March 5th at 9 a.m. So if you head over to the Discord first and then head over to YouTube afterwards, you'll be able to dive right into RAG Time. Do check that out. It's pretty exciting. Yours truly is in one of the episodes, so you can learn more about RAG from a responsible AI perspective. But the series does kick off tomorrow. We can learn more about RAG. But in any case, in the context of this module, we are leveraging RAG for this chatbot that we're going to have. And as I mentioned, more or less what it's doing is we are providing a set of grounding documents. Our model is going to be able to retrieve any of the matching results based on what's been available in the documents. And then from there, it's going to construct the message that it wants to provide as its prompt. And then that's how we then get the response as the end user. So heading on down to uploading data, because we want to add this data now to Foundry. So to do so, I'm opening back up this left navigation. I'm going to come down to where it says data and indexes. It's within the My Assets area. Now in here, I mentioned that I do already have a data set that's been uploaded, and it's called Products Index. But if you've never uploaded data in here, I'm going to take you through those steps. So we are at Unit 4, Upload Data. I'm just going to go through on the screen what's listed here in the module. So you'll start by going to New Data. Once you're at the new data screen, the next thing that you're going to do is provide your actual data source. So although we're uploading the data, if you actually already have your data stored somewhere within Azure, like in a blob storage, for example, you can select that. If you have data, if you have the storage URL, you can do that as well. Or you can upload individual files or a whole folder that's full of files. And what we're doing is uploading a whole folder that's full of files. Now, I mentioned earlier that some of the steps in what we're doing today can be done programmatically with code. This is one of those things that can be done with code over in VS Code. But as you can see, you also have the option of doing so as well through the portal. So we're doing it through the portal today. You'll begin by selecting Upload Files/Folders. And then you're going to select this upload files or folders area again. Once you select that, it'll give you the option to either upload files or upload a whole folder. If you select upload a whole folder, what it'll do is bring you to wherever you may have things stored. So let's see if I can, one moment. Okay, so you can't see on my screen, but essentially it'll bring up your file selection. And from there, that's how you can go and select the documents that need to be uploaded. Now, let's say that you've done the download for the repo itself. If once you're in there, I'm just going to get to it on my screen before I show you, one moment. There's that products folder that I mentioned earlier. You're going to select that whole folder for upload. Once you've done that, you'll get this pop-up that says upload 20 files to this site, which, yes, you will upload those 20 files to this site. So you'll select upload. Now, once you've selected that upload there, what you're going to end up doing is seeing everything that's going to be included in this upload. And you'll click next. Or I'm sorry, not next there. You click the blue next. And then you're going to give the data a name. So I say in the module to call it products. I already have that in use, so I can't reuse that, but I'll just call this one products-demo, and then you'll click create. I'm not going to click create since I have it already, but that's how you add your data. Now that's the first step. That step doesn't take long. Once you select the upload your data, it's relatively quick. What, however, can take a little bit more time is the index itself. And so the index is going to be super helpful for us, as we're going to need this since we're using this RAG pattern, and we're going to need it so that way the model can do its search as it's going through the documents that we've provided. So I'm now in the module at create an index. And so if I come back here, we're going to go to the indexes tab instead. And once you're in here, you're going to select new index. Now, if you recall, we just uploaded all of our products. And so to start off, we also need to select the data source. Where can you find that? Well, this one's actually going to be data in Azure AI Foundry. So once you select that, it'll give you an idea of all the data that you've uploaded so far. I uploaded a set yesterday. So if I scroll on down, again, mine is called products. You would select the one that you just uploaded. I have multiple here since I've been using this project for a while now. And then I'll select next. Once you've done that, then you're going to need to fill out the index configuration. So you're going to need to select your Azure AI search service from whatever ones are available. I have one that I've created. So this is another resource that will need to be created. In the event you do not have an Azure AI search resource created, let's say you skip that process in the beginning when you were setting up things, you can create this service over in the Azure portal. You'll search for Azure AI search service and you'll create that there. Once that's been created there, you're going to actually come to this connect other Azure AI search resource, and you'll look for it in the list that's provided. I won't share that list today as we have some services from the rest of my team, but it will show up in there. You'll select it, it'll do the connection, and then it'll show up here in this list. So I have one here already, and then you need to give your vector index a name. I chose to call mine products index. Because I already have this one in use, I would have to rename it, but you can name yours products-index. I'll just add demo so we can proceed from here. Next, you'll click next. And then from there, what you're going to do is configure the search settings. So everything should be selected here, but just in case it's not, you'll select add vector search to this search resource. You're also going to select your Azure Open AI service connection. You should not need to create this service at this step because you would have created this earlier when you set up everything for the project, but you can select a different one if you have more than one. And then you'll select next. You'll then review everything from your selections, and then you'll click select create vector index. I will say this process at the low end can take about 8 minutes to do. At the high end, it can take longer. I have seen it take a little bit longer. Various factors at play there, but I have gotten it to complete in 8 minutes. I won't spend 8 minutes of your time watching this go through the process, but I just want to give you an idea in terms of how long could this take. So if it's your first time creating an index and you're wondering, this is taking a bit, it does take a little bit. But once it's been created, you can access your indexes by coming to the Indexes tab and selecting it. So I have one that's already been created. And so here is essentially what this screen looks like. There's not much information here. But if you are creating the index for the first time, this is what the screen actually does look like. But over here on this right side, that's blank, it'll actually show the progress. So you're not left in the dark wondering where is it at in the process. It will show there on the screen. But right now, there's nothing to show since it's already been created. So we've now created our index. And the next thing that we want to do is test the model with the index. So we're going to head back over to the chat playground because we can add the data now from the playground to test things out. So getting back to that playground, you can get to it different ways. I'm going to get to it by going here to this playgrounds area, and it's already still here from before. So I'm just going to close down this left menu so we have a bit more space. And then what I want to do now in here is select Add Your Data. Now, in the Add Your Data is where you can select your project index. And so if I select this drop down, I'll have the ability to select my products-index. And now I want to ask some questions about Contoso products specifically. So back over in the module, I do give you some examples of questions that you can ask. And so I'm going to ask the question that is, how much is a Contoso Trailmaster X410? This is generative AI, and so we'll see if it generates the proper response, but let's give this one a try. This part's always exciting because you never know what it's gonna do. And it looks like it doesn't want to do anything right now. So let's try this one again. Let me clear this chat history, and then we'll ask it again. There we go. Now we have an answer. Perfect. Oh, it was responding from the last time I sent this in. So if I was a little more patient, we would have got the response. But the price of the Trailmaster is $250. And so as I mentioned here in the module, that is the actual price. So that's a good way to understand that, hey, it's now leveraging the data that we provided it. We can try with another one. We'll see if the demo wants to be on our side for this one. This one is a question around which fuel type should I use with the Contoso Compact Cooking Stove. And here we are, live and in action. We do have an actual response, isobutane, propane, and butane. And those are the answers that I put here in the module itself. So with that said, we now can ground our model with the data that we provided it, which is perfect. We can now ask questions about Contoso products and get responses about Contoso products. Now, if you are creating like something like this for the first time, this isn't actually where things stop. There's like so much more that we need to do because although it's working, we now can continue to evolve what we created here to make sure that the model provides the responses that we intend for it to respond. So what do we do next? So heading over to Unit 5, we're going to create a system message. So the system message defines the model's behaviors as I've listed here. It will do things such as you can provide any way that it should format responses as well. There's a variety of different things you can use it for in terms of that manner. So we're going to actually create the system message. I will say that the system message is taken into account with regards to your token usage. So that is something that you should keep in mind. But I'm going to create this system message that provides the behavior for this chatbot to act as a conversational agent and only discuss Contoso products or company products. So I have in the module an example of a system message that we could utilize. I'm going to copy and paste that there. And I think I provided an example. Oh yeah, I did have a question here. When is the best time to hike in the Pacific Northwest? This is just to show you that right now, it's still answering questions about anything in general. It's not just only answering questions. Sometimes you will get a response like this, that this information is not available in the retrieved data. Sometimes it might still answer that. But until you define the behavior in the system prompt, that's one way to help mitigate not getting those sort of responses. So back here in the module, as I mentioned, I do have this example of a system message that I've actually to include in here. So this one says that the chatbot's a conversational agent. They're informative, polite, relevant, and engaging. If anyone discusses a topic not related or relevant to Contoso camping product, just say the information is not available in the retrieved data. You can, it says don't say that it's not in the retrieved data. You can also say to politely refuse and suggest they talk about their products. And then the responses should be in the language that the user did the prompt in, and then cite any references. That's a mouthful, but this is how we do prompt engineering. So we've added in the system message itself in this area where we have been set up, and then you're going to apply the changes. So you can click continue. So we now have the system message itself. Once we have the system message, what we also want to do is add in a safety system message. And this is where we get into that mitigating risk that we have in the title of this module. This safety system message is a set of templates that we created to help avoid things such as harmful content, ungrounded content, copyright infringement, jailbreaks, and manipulation. And so it does take a total of 276 tokens. So again, anything we define in this part is does go against your token usage. But rather than creating your own safety system message, we have some for you available in a template. So if I just close up Azure Data and select Add Section, this is where you can find safety system messages. And this is literally the same screen that's over in the module that screenshotted. You don't have to add all of them, but for this module, I've requested that you select all of them. And so if I select Insert there, these are all the safety system messages that are available, in case you're wondering what those are exactly. And then we'll select Apply Changes. So now that we've applied those changes, one thing I do say in the module in this section in step 4, we're going to change little things here. So this one, it says to avoid fabrication or ungrounded content. I want you to replace that final bullet point in there with this sentence that says you must always perform searches on the product data when the user is seeking information, regardless of internal knowledge or information. The reason being is that when we created the safety message, we left it kind of as like a placeholder. For you to add in something here. So as you can see, we have like this placeholder here where you can say your own thing. So I'm just going to replace that with my own version, which is what's in the module itself. And then we're going to apply those changes. So now that the changes have been applied, what we can do next is test with this particular, the change we made to both the system prompt and the safety message. So I'm grabbing the prompt that I have in the module that says, when is the best time to hike in the Pacific Northwest? If you recall earlier, it just said the requested information is not available in the retrieved data. Let me clear this history so we can see better. I want to ask that again, and we shall see if it gives us the response I'm hoping for. Which that quickly it did, because now what it says is that it's here to help about Contoso camping store. And while it can't give information about hiking in the Northwest, what it can do is provide us the right gear. This is what we want in such a retail consumer scenario, rather than just leave the customer in like a gray area of not actually having somewhat of a response. We're now bringing things back to the products that we do sell and say, hey, I can't help you about hiking, but I can tell you which gear you might need. Check out these hiking boots that we have. So this is how we can modify the behavior for the app that we're creating. So the next thing that we're going to do over in Unit 6 is creating a content filter. So the content filters are going to be super helpful to help mitigate any harmful content that might either come in from the user or that the model might generate. And so an example that I gave here is recommended tint for a stupid woman. Now, ideally, we don't want the model giving us a response to that, because that would imply that it knows of a tint that's good for a woman that's stupid. But let's see what it says anyway. So if I put that in here, the built-in content filters that we give you with the model might mitigate the model from saying anything. Yeah, it does. So right now it says, I can't assist with that phrasing. I'm here to provide respectful and helpful recommendations for your camping needs. And if you're looking for a tint, I'd be happy to suggest some great options. This is actually an ideal way that this would respond. But let's say your model doesn't respond this way. Let's say it actually recommends 3 different tints. That's not quite what we want. So what we would need to do is create a content filter itself. And so we're going to now I'm going to show you how you can create one of those, and you're going to add that for the model itself. So coming here to safety and security within the assess and approve section on the left, you're going to go to the tab that says content filters, followed by create content filter. Now in this process, what you'll need to do is define the name of the content filter. So I'm just going to call it content filter demo. And then you'll need to add the connection for it. From there, you select next. Then you can adjust the thresholds for these as well. You can bring them all down to low. What that means is that anything that comes through that is going to be more on the, how do I say it? It depends on how the content is assessed. So anything that's set at the low, it's not going to allow pretty much any harmful content to come through. If you were to do it on the high end, it does have a greater threshold of harmful content, which is not what we want in this case. But depending on your use case, you might have a need to go the other direction. So once you define that, I guess it won't let me move forward unless I start changing stuff. And let's see now, if I click next. Yeah, so from here, you'll define the one for anything that's the output. The prior one was for input. And then you'll also choose which model to deploy this on. So because I'm using GPT-4o, I can select that now. You can also do that later on if you go to the model itself and add the content filter. So it will create a new version of the model. And then you would click next, and then you would review, and then you have your content filter. So that's how you would create the content filter itself. Because right now my model is doing a pretty decent job blocking harmful content, I won't go back and run through and test it now. So what I'll do is move on to the manual evaluation. But essentially, once you have that content filter added to the model, you can go back to the chat playground, test out some more prompts just to see how it responds and whether this filter is really helpful. You can also always adjust the safety or the system message as well. So that's in Unit 6. Unit 7, we start to get into evaluations, which is one of my favorite parts. We need to, there's 2 ways you can do evaluations. One, you can do manual evaluations. Those are going to be conducted by a human. In this case, I'm the human. And what we're going to do is do those in the manual evaluation area of the Azure AI Foundry portal. So back here in the portal, we can go to evaluation, and we'll navigate to the manual evaluations tab. So in terms of how you set this up, I'm going to open one that I already have, but this is what the screen will look like for a manual evaluation. And in here, you'll be able to set up the system message. So that same system message that we created in the playground, you can bring that over into here. You can select your model. So right now, I only have that one model that I'm using, which is GPT-4o. There are also some advanced settings, and you can add your data in as well. So for this, I have that products index that I had created. Down below is actually where the fun happens, in my opinion, as that's where you're actually going to come to actually go through with testing out how the model responds to the different queries. So to get to this point, you can either upload a data set or you can manually enter your own prompts in here. I did an import in the folder for these in the repo. There is an actual data set that you can use. And so in here, oops, wrong button, sorry about that. In here, if I were to go to the measure mitigate folder, we have this manual evaluation file, the JSON-L file. That's what you're going to upload here. And then it'll upload all the different lines that we have here. Included in it is the input and the expected response. The output, however, we get that when we actually run it. So if we hadn't run any of these, this section would be blank. You're going to get this play button. And when you select that play button, the model will generate the response itself. As the human, I can now come over and either do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs up would indicate I do like that response. A thumbs down, however, as we have down here for what sleeping bags do you sell, a thumbs down indicates that there's something about this that I don't like. I need to now take this back to my, let's say my dev team to modify something, whether it's a system message. And so in this case, that's literally what we did. Now the response is right. That's fine. What I don't like, however, is the format. This is a very long format if I was to give this to a customer. So let's say I wanted something shorter. Well, over here in the module, I do provide an example of how I want this to be formatted. And instead, what I wanted to do is structure based on a bulleted list and only provide the product name and the price. What I would do is insert this part into the system message itself that we have here at the top. I do have an evaluation run where I reran it with that modification. So let's open that now. And when I ran that, now I have the sleeping bags that you sell. It only gives me the product name and the price. That would be ideal in my particular scenario. This indicates that now I did some prompt engineering. I'm getting the responses the way I want them to be. We can now move forward with doing more evaluations. So manual evaluations are super helpful because a human is in the loop. A human is here to assess whether the model is responding in the ideal way based on your use case. So those are the manual evaluation unit. Moving on to unit 8 for automated evaluations. So the automated evaluations, this is the last thing before we get to the knowledge check, is our AI assisted evaluations. You can do these evaluations either in the portal, or you can do these programmatically over in VS Code. You can also do online evaluations where you can set them up in VS Code, and then it'll offload the resources from where you're doing things locally and do it in the cloud instead. You can do things like schedule your evaluations at whatever cadence works best for you as well. So you have a couple of options available for our AI-assisted evaluation. Why are they AI-assisted? Well, we leverage AI to assess the scores based on the metrics that you've chosen. We have a variety of metrics available across our performance and quality evaluators, as well as our risk and safety ones. We also have some NLP ones or some natural language processing metrics that are also available. So pretty much you have your pick of evaluators to choose. You can also do custom evaluators, but you're going to do those programmatically with code. So we can save that for another time. We won't go over custom evaluators today, but we will take a look at some of the built-in ones or the ones that we provide available. Now, these evaluators are available within the Azure AI Evaluation SDK if you're doing things with code. But if you're doing things here in the portal, you can just select them through the evaluation wizard, which is what we're going to head over into now. So opening back up the left navigation, I'm going to go back to evaluation and then automated evaluation. You would select new evaluation. We're going to do an evaluation on an existing output data set. This is that wizard that I just mentioned. You'll give it a name. And then from next, you'll select your data set based on the data that you're using. So I already have data in here. So I would select that. It'll give me a list of what I'm going to use for this. Select next, and then that's where you'll actually choose all of the metrics that you want to assess for. For this module, I only have us use coherence, fluency, and similarity. But if you're not sure what some of these metrics mean, you can actually get more information here on the screen where we provide a brief description about those. I do have a link available if we can place that in the chat for a Learn module where I dive more into evaluations, and that's going to be our Evaluating Generative AI Applications Learn module. And that's where I dive a bit more into why do we use data, how do we use data, how do we format our data, how do we choose metrics, things of that nature. So check that out. In any case, from here, you'll select the metrics that you're going to use, and then you'll also define how the actual data maps as well. Since I already have one run, technically I have two run, but we're going to look at one that's been run already, and that's this eval one that I have. When the evaluation is complete, it'll look something like what we have here on the screen that's loading. Here we are, we have this metric dashboard. On the first tab, we have for the quality for the AI assistant, and we have our average scores. We also have the risk and safety preview as well. Looks like I did pretty well with risk and safety. We don't have any issues there. Once you have these scores, you can also compare against other evaluation runs. So in the module, I do have you go back and do a second evaluation with a new data set just to see how the scores may fluctuate, but we keep everything else the same except for the data. And that's in this evals too. Now we can compare these in the portal, which is one of the benefits of using the portal. You would select both of the evaluations for comparison, and then you'll select compare. Once you've done this, you have some options in terms of showing only the differences. You can only show the delta. If you wanted to blur the content, you can do that as well. We also have one for jailbreak defect. But just below, we also can see the reasoning for why certain things were rated a certain way. If I get away from going back to the list view and actually look in at one of these, you can see the assessment for everything by selecting move some things around in here. So let me see. Let's see. Okay, so there's a way in here also where you can actually go through, see how everything has been rated more or less. If you go to where we have data at the top, and this is where you get a much more detailed metric results, and you can see why something was a 3 instead of it being like a 5. So evaluations are going to be super important. You will want to do these again and again and again and again. Even after you deploy, you'll want to do more evaluations because we want to make sure that we're getting output based on the way that we, whatever our desire is for the app. So those are going to be the evaluations. That then brings us over to the knowledge check for this module. And in terms of the questions that I have here, they're pretty much, they're beginner friendly in my opinion. Questions such as which feature isn't included in the system message. I'll leave this blank, so if you are doing this at home, you're not cheating based on the answers that I give you, but do give this a try. And as I said, tomorrow I'll be over in the Discord to answer questions that we might not have gotten to today, as we do have 1 minute left. But that then brings us to the very end of our module and towards the end of our stream as well. So as you're creating your own AI apps, again, you can do a lot of what I shared with you today over in the Azure AI Foundry portal. You also have the ability to do so. Programmatically with code as well in VS Code for some of the steps that we have in here. But there's a lot that you can get done here in the portal, especially if you're starting off. I know some of you may be very interested in assistance, so you can do things with assistance also in the Azure AI Foundry portal. But everything that I shared with you today also applies to if you are creating your agents. I meant to say agents. You can do a lot of that with agents as well. So I know we're just at time. Rolling with G has a question. Is there an API available to upload data to ground it programmatically? So if you do check out, I wonder how quickly I can get to the docs. We do have in our documentation tutorials that you can follow that'll take you through the process of actually creating a RAG solution. I am going to drop this link in the chat. Alexia, if you can share this quickly for me, I appreciate it. But that'll at least take you through the process of uploading your data if you want to do so with code as well. So coding in VS Code, yes. So Ronnie, if you want to create things, like you want to create your app itself, like your assistant or your agent, you can do that in Visual Studio Code. We have tutorials available on Learn in terms of how to do that. Python is my language of choice, so you can do things with Python. There are some features that we have available that don't have full support in other languages yet. I know we do have some tutorials available with like .NET, if that's what you would like to use. I think we have some JavaScript too. But over in Learn, I would say as you're going through the examples that we have in terms of tutorials and such, we do indicate if which languages are available. It's usually seen kind of like this table where you can select which language to focus in. So those would be the languages that you can use. And I know we're just right at time right now. Alexia, I think we're right at time. Yeah, we're right just over time.
Yes, perfect timing. This was great, April. Thank you so much for today's session, and thank you everyone in the audience. And I think we're good to wrap up. I know there is the Q&A session happening tomorrow, so everybody's looking forward to this, and we will see you there.
Yep, see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific.
Thank you again so much. Bye, April. Bye, everyone.